They call it the news. It's meant to inform you. But do you ever really feel informed? Here, we look for the signal in all that static. I'm Caesar, and welcome to Strange Frequency. And welcome back. Welcome to tonight's show. Did you miss me? Well, I sure hope so, because that ties directly into our opening segment, which we like to call the dopamine economy. We start with something subtle, something most people experience, but they rarely stop to examine. Maybe they don't even notice it. And the modern economy isn't just built on money anymore, it's built on attention, and more specifically, dopamine. Recent research into social media behavior shows something consistent, that platforms are designed around reward systems in the brain. Dopamine, the same chemical tied to motivation, habit forming, and addiction. So every notification, every like, every new piece of content, every comment that you leave, and please leave some comments. This triggers reward signals, and over time, this creates a feedback loop. The brain learns, check again, and it does. Researchers compare this system to something else, gambling, and specifically variable rewards. You don't know what comes next, so you keep scrolling. Sometimes nothing, sometimes something, and that unpredictability keeps the loop alive. Over time, something starts to change. Not just behavior, expectation. People begin expecting constant stimulation. Silence begins to feel uncomfortable. Stillness feels unnatural. Can't have that. And boredom, God forbid boredom, becomes something to avoid completely. But boredom used to serve a purpose. And if you grew up before iPhones and the internet, you know exactly what boredom is. It created space. Space to think, space to reflect, space to create. Now that space is filled instantly with content, with noise, with something always. Over time, the brain adapts, it recalibrates. What once felt normal starts to feel slow, quiet, underwhelming. So here's what we know. When attention becomes the product, the user becomes part of a system, not the consumer, the input. And sometimes that shift happens and the incentives change. The goal is no longer just to inform, it's to retain, to engage, to keep you inside the loop. And once the brain adapts to constant reward, everything else just feels different, slower, quieter, less satisfying. Not because reality changed, but because the baseline did. So the question isn't just how much time people spend online, but it's what that time's doing to them. How they think, how they feel, and what they expect from the world. That's what we know. That's tonight's cultural signal, and none of us are immune to it. There's times that I have to break the cycle, leave the AirPods alone, or the wired headphones, walk the creek bed, go in the woods, drink bone broth. It does help. If segment A was about what these systems do to the mind, then segment B should be about what they do with the data. Isn't it nice when everything's connected? Because while people are scrolling, something else is happening. quietly, constantly. Everything, everything is being recorded. Researchers call this model surveillance capitalism. In simple terms, companies collect massive amounts of data. What you click, what you watch, how long you pause, what you search, even what you hesitate on. All of it's captured, not just to understand behavior, but to predict it. Your experience becomes raw material, processed into something measurable. The system learns patterns. When you're active, what holds your attention, what triggers emotion, and over time, it improves. Not at informing you, at predicting you. And once behavior can be predicted, it can be influenced. This is where it changes. The system isn't just reacting to you, it's shaping what you see next. So here's what we know: the product is not the content, the product is prediction. The system doesn't just learn you, it studies you, then adjusts to your environment. So take just a moment and think about what that means. Two people, often on the same app, and see completely different worlds, not random, calculated, built from past behavior and reinforced over time. So the more you engage, the narrower that world becomes. Not because someone told you to think, but because the system learned what you're most likely to respond to, and it gave you more of it. That's its goal. That's why people say we live in a bubble or in an echo chamber, because sometimes it's the system putting us there, whether we realize it or not. Influence doesn't always look like control. Sometimes it looks like preference. And again, this creates the feedback loop. Behavior informs the system, and the system reinforces the behavior. Over and over and over, until the line between what you choose and what you were shown starts to blur. So the question isn't just what you're watching, it's why you're seeing it, and really, who benefits from that. Because once behavior becomes predictable, it becomes valuable. And once it becomes valuable, it gets optimized. That's what we know. So tonight we end on something a bit quieter. Not something seen, something heard, or at least reported. There are people across the world who claim they hear a sound, a low, constant hum. Not everyone hears it, but for those who do, it's unmistakable. It's often described the same way: a distant engine, a low vibration, something just below the surface. Reports have come from the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, and beyond. The phenomenon is often called the hum or the Taos hum. Studies suggest only a small percentage of people can actually hear it, roughly around 2%. But those who do report something consistent. It's usually heard at night, in quiet environments, when everything else is still, and once it's noticed, it's very hard to ignore. Investigations have tried to explain it. Industrial machinery, electrical systems, low frequency sound waves, even internal causes like tinnitus. In some cases, sources have actually been identified, but in others, they haven't, and that's where it stays. And here's what we know: the human brain is extremely sensitive to sound, especially in silence, especially at night. And when something doesn't have a clear source, the mind fills in the gaps. But what stands out is consistency across locations, across people. When individuals who have never met describe the same type of sound with no confirmed origin, you have to at least ask the question, is it environmental or is it internal? Or is it something we don't fully understand yet? Some researchers believe that it's probably a combination of both. A real sound amplified by perception. Others believe it's entirely physical, just difficult to trace because low frequency sound travels differently and hides well. But for those people who hear it, the experience is real. Some report sleep disruption, anxiety, a constant sense of pressure. Not loud, just persistent. And once you notice it, you tend to keep listening for it. And that may be the most interesting part. Not just the sound itself, but the awareness of it. Because once something enters your attention, it's difficult to remove. And whether it's coming from the world or from within, it becomes part of your reality. Most people will never hear it. Some will, maybe once. Others, more than that. Low. Constant. Easy to ignore until it isn't. That's tonight's signal. We'll keep listening. Hopefully not for the hum. We've already got enough on our mind. And that concludes tonight's broadcast. As always, links to the articles used will be in the description below. And if you have anything strange or unexplained, put it in the comments. Please like and subscribe and share this with your friends. Until next time, we'll keep listening for the signal.